Well, hello everyone. You have right here talking about whenever it comes to disability, right? But what does it usually mean when we do talk about claims? And a lot of times that whenever we do speak about claims, right? And so each time you do think about that and want to know too that okay, yeah, claims. Are we talking about insurance claims, or are we talking about any sorts of a settlement, right? And so each time you do think about that and think as toward what's a good best way of how to describe a claim, and think as toward claims. Are claims known as a gift, and like say it is toward is it considered a gift? A gift that is owed to that person just because just because from an approval. So let's just say that approval. You're from an approval or something like that. So if you were to say something like that, then 102 is that that is owed to you. That this was owed to you from earlier. So if you were to say something like that, and let's just say that anything that you're going to be working on, right, and you're 102, that talk about for disability, and you're thinking as toward it, really, what is a good way of how to describe a claim? And people might think as toward, okay, talk about for a claim, right? Claims usually are about as toward it, those are benefits, that is paid to you just because of if it was over an important matter, or maybe a delay in the process or something like that, or maybe if it is anything that was related to any documents that were, that should have been processed from earlier or something like that, or paid to you upon, so it's reimbursement or something like that. So each time you do think about a claim, that do you necessarily think about is that to where that's the same thing as a gift, or like everybody else would say is toward we'll claim for a disability, or it's another way of saying I can also put on here, it's another way of saying is toward that's proof that a person has for their records just to determine a case when it is related to I mentioned earlier about citizenship. Whenever it comes to citizenships, and also in application, right? So every time you do think about that in 102, that like everybody else might even say that I can go ahead and maybe like everybody say that if you want to go ahead and type a little bit more, or just paste a few of that wordings in, or if anything I can just continue writing here. But talking about gifts, so you're talking about gifts, but also notice as to where this was owed to you from earlier, just because the approval had to be it had to be postmarked or something. It had to be postmarked or something like that until the following business day or something like that. So if you were to say something like that, like people might say that, okay, if you set a goal, and let's just say that if you say on there that usually what does that usually mean whenever you do say something like this process should take up to 10, you usually have to 10 business days here. So if you were to say something like that, and somebody might even say that if you're going to be getting into conversations like that, talking about taking care of something important, right, and you're warned to where that you go ahead and you start writing in a letter, and at 102 is toward that letter right there is the proof about your disability and everything. But whenever you look back at all this paperwork right here, all these documents right here, like I was talking about from earlier. I talk about setting our goals and everything, our goals and our achievements, right? And 102 is to really, what is a good example of a claim? And like everybody would maybe even say that, yeah, what's a good example of a claim? Well, do you want to be able to use it maybe just a little bit as a gift, a gift, to word it, that's, yeah. So let's just say that if you applied for disability benefits from before, and like people might say that, well, that's not really, that's not really a claim. That's just like a for any back, I guess the government, or you even say too, that's known as for back pay, right? But let's just say that that if you were doing studies about this, about your insurance, right? People might say that, well, that's not really insurance. What insurance really is that they're just trying to look over your information based on what the doctor said, and also about about your condition, about your health and all that, and of course about your ability for what you understand. But just knowing that that whenever we do talk about special citizenship right here, so in case if somebody were to ask me that really, what is a good example of a claim? If somebody were to be claiming something, what do you think that would necessarily mean right there? What does that basically mean? Is to where that they expected a lot more than what they got, or does that mean that they had insurance during the time? And yeah, a lot of it. I think a lot of it also has to do with that the problems that were found. Yeah, it was the problems. It was the problems that were found from earlier. So like, let's just say that while you were working on something, and let's just say that you got page 1 and 2 right here to explain, 2 pages right here, the front back cover right here, 1 image about what the problem is. So yeah, so a lot of it I think has to do with the problems. So any problems that came up from earlier and at 102 that yeah, that problems that had to be fixed from earlier. Yeah, problems that had to be fixed. Problems that came up that had to be fixed earlier, right? And so whenever you do think about that in year 102, that yeah, problems that had to be fixed, and you had the paperwork. You had the paperwork, like everybody else would say, is toward, yeah, especially when we're talking about bills and everything. But still, that your problems that came up from earlier, and you're warned toward, okay, yeah, problems that came up earlier. But really, though, that yeah, talk about for what was on the bill, and everybody else may say that, yeah, if you can go ahead and give an example right here, down here on the bottom about, really, about a bill. Bills are forms of information based on the service received, right? The service that was received. Based on the service that was received. And so if I were to, I'm like, yeah, tell people too, just, I'm like, yeah, I was talking about claims right here, but, in case of anybody to ask me that, if you want to go ahead and give an example right here of what a bill would usually look like, and I'll just put on here that, yeah, the bill, and then account number, the account number, something like that would go, usually you would find that on the right there, and then also, the company, yeah, the company name right here, company name, and also, the total amount due. Yeah, the total amount due right here. So each time you do think about that in 102, that, okay, yeah, that, so like, let's just say that I can just put on here, yeah, $157, and that, so yeah, so we all know that as soon as you get a bill, for sure, that your mind is kind of wandering toward it, yeah, for sure, as soon as you get a bill. But I'm just using this as an example for right now, but I tell everybody that, you know, whenever you do speak about claims a lot of times, whenever you do speak about claims, that, you know, you think about a claim as to where that's, you know, a claim, is a claim another way of saying is to where a gift, or is that just another way of saying is to where that, you know, special offers and discounts, you know, to be able to, if you have insurance, or if you're a membership through a certain company or something like that, like, you know, to be able to fix problems. And a lot of times, you know, whenever problems come up for sure, that, you know, you would need to have something like, some sort of like, an invoice or something like that, just to explain about the problems for what they found. You know, if you're going to hire a contractor or anybody that's going to be, you know, fixing the problem, right? But we're talking about disability, right? So it's like, so every time you do think about that, and you're warned to where that, you know, whenever you do hear about insurance, number one, whenever you do speak about insurance, maybe not everybody really understands what that means by if it's contractor or insurance or membership or anything like that. And so that's why it seems like that whenever you first started working on something like this, for sure, that the first thing that you were thinking about is that, you know, about your disability. And so really, that, you know, do most teachers really think about that is to where that, do you want to think about disability as another way of having insurance? You know, being a citizenship, you want to look at that as to where that, you know, you have insurance, or like maybe I say is to where that, well, really, that, it's all about, you know, about how you think. I'm like, you know, it's all about the typical thinking, right? And, so I have right here, like, is a thinking right here, but every time you do think about that, and you're 102 is toward it, you know, talk about for special charities can mean, so a lot of stuff that we were looking at from earlier, right? Talk about for real quick right here, but really that, you know, how many of us have really had a meeting talking about, you know, talk about claims, and talk about insurance claims, and talk about any source of insurance, and talk about claims. What exactly are claims? You know, what are claims meant to be right here? And for any reason at all that, you know, if you had to, if there was any claim that you had to file a claim or something like that, but still that, so each time you do think about that, and you're 102, that what's a good way of how to explain about a claim? And what I say is toward it, a claim is basically another way of something that was owed to you from a long time ago. And so, like, let's just say that people might say that if you go ahead and write down here, you know, you go ahead and write down here, like, go ahead and, I know you got all the space right here. I can maybe make that a little bit bigger too, but owed to you. Yeah, this was owed to you. Owed to you. So if you were to say something like that, owed to you from a long time ago. It was owed to you from a long time ago. So like everybody else might say that, you know, anything that you're going to be working on for sure. That, you know, even if it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and you're 102, that, you know, based on your disability papers and anything that was not provided right away, and I guess that's another result of the problem is to where that people may say that, you know, it may seem like it was a lot more work than what it was really worth, but like everybody else might say that you got the front and back pages right here. So everybody might say that if they look at all this right here and they're wondering to where really, I don't even know what that's all about, but tell everybody that, you know, really that what you really are doing right here is that they go, you're putting together a project right here that contains information just so that way you can better understand just a little bit of what's really expected within in the near future whenever it comes to providing the photographs, and whenever it comes to any analysis work or something like that. But talk about for the gifts right here. But you see right here of talking about problems right here. So you have right here, using this image right here, this painting right here. But like this right here was supposed to be an example right here of like, talking about your problems and talking about the things that you would like to see approved. You're having a meeting about something, right? And you mentioned on here on the bottom about the things that you talked about. But it's like every time you think about that, and you're always wondering to where that, yeah, what is a good example of a claim? Any claims that from your insurance, and you're always want to know too that being a special citizen of the United States, that you're always worried toward that the things that you would normally see on an application will be the things that maybe that you don't have any information about, or if anything that you're trying to put together, you're trying to generate more information about that and all that. But really that can we really think about that is toward it was owed to you from a long time ago, and like everybody say, yeah, owed to you, comma, from a long time ago or something like that. The way that you want to go ahead and word that, and people might say is toward it. So whenever you do fill out the disability paperwork, for sure, that if you say something like that, owed to you from a long time ago or something like that, what do you think that that's really telling anybody else? And they're like, well, really, that if there's any sort of claim or settlement about about the problems that from earlier or something like that, or just if there's just not enough information, that there needs to be more information provided that just to be able to take care of the problem, and that is why it seems like that claims are just another statement of saying is to where a settlement whenever it comes to insurance sales and in an agreement, and rather than arguing about the situation all the time, and it is also about an agreement. It's also about agreeing in a gift that is owed to you, owed to that person just because from the approval. So whenever you do think about that, and you're want to know too that is it over the fact about, okay, as soon as you get the bill, yeah, they'll take care of it as soon as you get the bill, or like everybody else say that most of the time it's over the fact about, no, there's not enough proof. There needs to be more proof. Yeah, there needs to be more proof, and that's usually what I hear. More proof. More proof. Yeah, more proof needed, and I could put that like, quotation mark or something like that, but so every time you do think about that, and you're always want to know too that just because you get a bill, or just because you get any sort of a document or notifications or anything like that, and you're thinking as toward it, do you really have to show them proof about that should have been taken care of through your insurance, or that should have been taken care of a long time ago? But still, it's like you're always want to know too that every time you do think about that, whenever it comes to claims, and whenever it comes to taking care of important tasks and everything, that you're warned to where that if you would actually do your research though, that you're warned to where that if that's really how it works, or just just be known as for a U.S. citizen though, that it was owed to you from a long time ago, and so like everybody else might say that based on anything that you're going to be working on, that's the first thing that's really going to come to your mind is to where it's this was owed to you. It should have been owed to you from earlier, but it was delayed, and it took a while for us to get back to you about it, and we apologize about that. And so really that so in case of anybody that were to say that every time you do think about that, and you're warned toward it, if you have the things that you're going to be working on based on your disability, though, right? A lot of things that you understand, but you're just trying to get you're trying to get your worker, or maybe if it is a lawyer, or anybody that you're going to be talking to, anybody that you're going to be coordinating with, anybody that you're going to be working with, that you're warned toward it, that why do you think that that would really be, your responsibility? Just to take care of some of that stuff, and like everybody might even say that, you're having to keep a track of a lot of that, but it's like every time you do look at a lot of those bills, for sure, that you want to know too that not everybody is really going to know what a claim is until you explain to somebody, very clearly about, okay, yeah, you'll file for a claim and all that, but still, that if you're going to be filing any sort of claim, for sure, that they'll probably tell you that with the claim, through a claim, that you really should be using maybe a Word document or some, maybe Excel file, just to be able to put together that information, right? But still, that but if we're talking about using InDesign here, but still that but showing here that knowing about what a claim is. A claim pretty much means that it was owed to you. This right here was owed to you from earlier. After you took care of getting the problem fixed. So I guess like everybody else might say that is that how most insurance companies usually work? As to where if you have insurance or some sorts of a membership or something like that, that they're going to say is to where that this was owed to you just because this was owed to you just because we want to treat you special with kindness or something like that. But like everybody else might even say that based on their experience, is that really I think some of it also has to do with the fact that they don't really want to bother with it right now, or anybody, companies, workers, whoever it is, clients. Sometimes they don't want to bother with all that work that is needed to be done, and so that's why it seems like but still, it's like but every time I think about that, and I'm always thinking as to where what is it that you can see that maybe not everybody else can see right here? And like I say, well, we all know what disability means right here, right? What special treatment right here means, right? But every time you do think about insurance, though, you may think is toward insurance. Insurance pretty much means that everything is all taken care of. No, it's not. It's not all taken care of. Like the way I think about it, I learned that the hard way. To me, it's all about taking care of your fair share, right? And that is why it seems like that. Every time you do study about that and want to know too that I mean, that's why it seems like everybody else seems to be all mad all the time about the things that are going on, and people want to know too is toward it. So if you were to produce your own gift wrap, and 102, you'll produce your own gift wrap, but still. But you go ahead and start writing about something, but everybody else might say, you go ahead and start writing about something, and you got the welcome right here. But I'm like, every time I try to write about something, it sure seems that way something else, something comes to your mind, anything else that you want to talk about, anything else that you want to jibber jabber about. But I can conclude right here, talking about for 10 business days. So it's like, 10 business days. 10 business days, so I guess if you would actually do the math right there, so that's about 500 minutes. So like, let's just say that, if you were to go ahead and use that right there. 500 minutes, or do you want to use 400? I said 400 earlier. 400 minutes. Really, how long is 400 minutes? Everybody else might say that, 400 minutes. 10 days to 400 minutes. Why don't companies tell you 400 minutes? Everybody might say that, don't you think that maybe you would much rather hear 400 minutes rather than, well, if you're trying to take care of something real important, that's usually what you hear. You don't hear 400 minutes. You hear up to 5 to 10 business days right here. So in case of anybody that were to ask me, that if you were to do any sorts of advertising, for sure, if you were to be doing any sorts of advertising, you would normally see something like 5 to 10 business days to take care of something. You would not see this right here, 400 minutes right here. I'll go and write this bigger, but if you really wanted something done for sure, then maybe you would see, I would tell everybody, if you were to put this to the test right here, why don't you say 400 minutes? If you really want an agenda done, for sure, put on there 400 minutes and see what happens. What all can you get done in 400 minutes? And for sure, people might tell you that, if that's really going to speed up the process, just because, number one, if you really want to see something get done, if you think that something is working, if you really think that there are fewer delays. There are fewer delays because of what reason? Well, because that, you really, you're trying to put a little bit more hard work and effort into getting something done, right? So really, so if you were to do something like that, right here, right? It's like, let's just say that if you were to actually write something down, such as 10 business days, 400 minutes, is that really supposed to give somebody a real good picture? If that's supposed to give somebody a real good clue, a real good picture of what the problems are, and just to kind of like, try to get things fixed before they get worse, just to make sure, try to prevent them from getting any worse than what they really are. Is that, for things to get better, you go ahead and write on here 400 minutes right here. And it's like bills are supposed to be information based on the services received, right? So so if you were to actually write that down and say that, this was owed to you from earlier, and it was owed to you from a long time ago, and so it's like, so every time you do think about that, and your thinking is toward, claims, and that, so every time you think about that, your thinking is toward it, my disability this and my disability that, my disability permits me from being able to go any further, or that, a lot of things that I don't understand about the system and all that, but still, based on your knowledge, how do you think that the system works? Is that you could probably say is toward it, I believe that I had done quite a bit more than maybe what I should have done. And if you were to tell somebody that, I believe that I've done quite a bit more than what you thought I did. And so it seems like that, well, if you go ahead and write down a few of your objectives, like maybe on a document, you go ahead and write those down, and if you go ahead and test it, run a test, run it like a diagnosis test with it, just to test it out to make sure that everything was all right and that there were no problems. And that is why it seems like that every time you put that to the test, and want to know too that why do you think that there has to be a project? You have to do a project to where you go ahead and show an image. You go ahead and show a still image like something like this right here, to where you got the front and back pages right here that talks about, work that you were doing, and like a little letter right here of talking about, goals and achievements, but then also two-page document right here, the two-page document right here. I talk about something that you were working on from earlier, and for every given choice and for every given voice is a given choice right here, but then also claims, and so every time you think about claims, though, and really, what exactly does that mean? And so it's like, so you go ahead and start writing a letter, and the first thing that you're going to be thinking about is that, my disability, it limits me to where it's harder for me to understand the work that needs to be done, and, for helping everybody else understand, to be able to meet the requirements. But whenever we do talk about claims, though, claims are supposed to be another way of saying is toward that this was owed to you from a long time ago, and just to be able to determine, based on insurance and based on any benefits and eligibility that that was owed to you from earlier, right? And so every time you think about that, and you're warned toward it, what all? So every time you try to work on something, for sure, the first thing that you're going to see is that, it's going to be about maybe 5 to 10 business days. That's usually what you hear, right? People might say that, if you're lucky, I'm like, oh yeah. So like everybody might say that, 5 to 10 business days, just to take care of it. And that's usually what you hear. And so if you were to read that in 102 is toward it, really, how do you know if, how do you know if somebody's really working really hard at trying to get something done? And compared to, 400 minutes, by the way. People might say that if you give that to the test right here, if your goals and achievements were measured in amount of minutes for sure, don't you think that the working process will go a lot faster? Maybe because of the fact, like everybody else might say, that you really need to know what you're doing just for it to go any faster, but it's like, a lot of times it seems like that, there's something about those 2 zeros to where that, it's not going to take that long, or that no, sometimes, they just, the company, they're not going to get to it right away, or something came up to where the things that they don't have access to, or whichever it is, but, I'm about ready to say, too, that, whenever it comes to, doing very well in business, though, that don't you think that a lot of your goals and achievements should be measured in the amount of minutes and seconds rather than hours and days and weeks and months? If you were to write a resume, though, let's just say that if you were to write a resume, if you were to include something like that, toward, how long does it usually take you to be able to complete a task? And let's just say that if you were to say on there, 400 minutes is how long it takes for me to be able to complete a task. And, if you talk about that, like 400 minutes, okay, 400 minutes. 400 minutes, that's about 8 hours. And does it take you about that long to complete a task? I'm like, yeah, for the most part, that it may not meet all the requirements, but for the most of them. But due to my disability, but like everybody else might say, that, it's all about finding something interesting about what you do, right? So it's like every time you do talk about that, and if you put on here is to where that it's all about finding, found interesting. So it's all about finding, it's all about finding something interesting. I'm like, I can write it down over here too, but it's all about finding something interesting about what you do, right? So every time you think about that, and you're 102, that, how do you know it's going to take 5 to 10 business days for you to be able to do a task? How do you know if it's going to take that long? And how do you know if it's going to take longer? How do you know if it's going to be a little bit more quicker than expected? How do you know that? And people might say is the number one key factor matter is to know whenever you do start writing it down. You start writing down the analysis. You go ahead and start writing it down on a spreadsheet document or any sort of project document that you're working on. You go ahead and write it down. And you go ahead and write it down for a reason, right? You're writing it down so that way you can get a better understanding just to determine what's going on. And if you go ahead and do the test, you go ahead and test out the equipment, you go ahead and you go ahead and get an expert, to be able to study about what's going on. And so every time you think about disability, though, that like everybody else might say that we all know what a disability means, right? A disability means is toward that your way of thinking and learning is different than compared to everybody else. But why can't we use this right here? Talk about for it was owed to you. And so anything that you're going to be working on for sure, that, it's going to be about 5 or 10 business days before something's done, and, or longer, and, or maybe 6 weeks, and, you might even hear that too, to where, it's, 6 weeks, so like everybody else might say that anything really important that you're going to be working on for sure, that's usually what you hear. But I would maybe think that if you had maybe 2 or 3 different categories on an application for what you would want to pick from to choose from, right? People might say is toward it that what's the fastest service do you think that you'll be able to get? Is it 6 weeks, or is it 5 to 10 business days, or is it 400 minutes? And I would probably say to tell everybody that, I would think that I would agree that 400 minutes will be a lot faster based on my experience. 400 minutes is much faster than compared to the 6 weeks. That's my opinion about it. And I tell everybody that 6 weeks, well, you can use 6 weeks if you like, but I would use 400 minutes. But companies might say that 5 to 10 business days. But so every time you're going to be ordering online, every time you're going to be ordering online, you want to put that to the test. That every time you do look at that, and you want to know too, is toward it, how do you expect to get good, reliable service, and how do you expect to get good, reliable testing results, and how do you expect to get good reliability? Good reliability. How do you, reliability. I know, I'm trying to spell it right here, but how do you expect to get good reliability, maybe if you don't put that to the test, right? Like everybody else may say that, well, you may not know everything, you may not know everything, that's right, you may not know everything, but if you're testing it, that's right. Whenever you're testing it, you're just making sure that everything is working properly, right? You're just making sure that everything is working. It's all about making sure, it's all about testing. It's all about testing to make sure everything is working. Everything is working. So really, that whenever you run a diagnostics, right there, right? So it's like every time you think about that, and you always want to know too that if that's really your job, but like everybody else would say, it's really not. But like people might say, is to where if you do have a pen and paper around, or any computer programming that you're going to be using, if you're going to be putting that to the test, right? And people might say that, if you tested this out, if you have real good knowledge on how to use stuff like this, you put that to the test. And want to know too that, 5 to 10 business days, 400 minutes, or 6 weeks. And you want to know too that, I think that I would choose 400 minutes. And like, why do you think that you would choose 400 minutes? If you're trying to set any source of goal or achievement, why do you think that you would use 400 minutes? If you're trying to take care of something right away, why do you think that you would use 400 minutes? Well, I would actually use 400 minutes, number one, so that way I can test to see how long that really is. Everybody else might say that that's equal to 8 hours. It's equal to 8 hours, and it is, and I believe it is. It's equal to 8 hours, and I'll even tell everybody just to put that to the test. It's equal to 8 hours. Yep, equal to, I can put on here, equal to 8 hours. Something like that, Or is it going to let me tie? I know it. Equal to, I know it. But, equal, equal to 8 hours. But if you were to put that to the test, I know I'm trying to key it in there, but spell it. But anyway, equal to 8 hours, and you want to put that maybe right up here. But anyway, I know it. That right there, it really just leave that there. I can go ahead and move it. I'm trying to write it up here. I'm trying to write it up here, but I know it. You're trying to make everything perfect, but it's not. Everybody say if you spent a lot of time trying to make things perfect, for sure. Do you think that maybe that it's taken a lot longer than expected? You can really spend a lot of time with it, but like everybody say, it's all about making good progress, right? It's really about trying to make real good progress with what you're working with, right? Even though if not everything is perfect. You're just trying to make good progress right here. Even though people may say that, you're not really doing that you're not doing it right, but still you're testing it out too. You're testing out just to make sure it's working properly, or just to see that there's any easy facts to remember or anything like that. Like everybody else may say that whenever you do start writing things down, are you able to get some more information about that? Whenever you do write things down like that, you're able to get good, reliable service just by doing that. And people might say that, does it work each and every time? Well, it may not work each and every time, but every time you think about that, and you're always thinking that, you go ahead and put that to the test. Equal to 8 hours right here. Yeah, 400 minutes right here. So if I were to calculate that, you want to know too that, 400 minutes. What all can you get done in 400 minutes? And you might think it's toward. I think I can get quite a bit done in 400 minutes if you put that to the test. And I want to know too that it may not be something that you like, but still. But on the other hand too, that when we talk about trying to get our agendas done a lot of times, so it's like every time you have a meeting about that, and you're thinking as toward it, you talk about things, and people want to know too that documents that are readable and everything, and people may say that you have a little bit more of a clear, more understanding about something when they're able to read and understand the language and maybe understand a lot of those documents if they're recordable, if they're all recorded and where you can actually see them. But you want to know too that 5 to 10 business days is usually what you hear whenever it comes to taking care of something important, right? And the way I think about too that to be quite honest with anybody that you might think is toward that any job that you're going to be doing for sure that they're going to say is toward that your first experience doing that seemed to be a lot harder and took a lot longer than what you thought. And so, let's just say that the first time you were working on something, it seemed like that was the case. That whenever you were first working on something, that it took a lot longer the first time that you were first learning that, but still. But every time you think about that, and I talk about for claims, but still, that your first experience with learning something new, or maybe if it is a lot of things that you don't quite understand, the first thing that you were thinking about for sure was, my disability right here. The first thing that you were thinking about was, I got a disability. I have a real hard time understanding things. So if you're going to be going out shopping and maybe looking around and maybe going out and visiting a friend or a client or anybody, and you may want to know too that, based on your experience, that the first thing that you think about is that, I have a disability, but somebody might say that, really, what is it that you're trying to say? Well, if that's really acceptable or not, or like everybody say, you go ahead and start writing about something for sure. And people may say that, one of the reasons why you were doing this right here is that, you were sharing your knowledge with somebody that you were talking to for sure. Any conversations that you do get into, that for sure, you're going to tell them that you go ahead and start writing about stuff, anything that comes to your mind, and the first thing that you think about is toward, what are your plans that you're planning on doing for tomorrow, or something like that. But every time you think about that, and you're thinking as toward it, you go ahead and start out the sentence by that, I got disability, or that, what's one thing special about you that you do that's really impressive to somebody else? And people might say, I could probably think of a lot of things, really. But really, that, about photograph right here, about the autograph, talk about the signatures right there. And I know everybody else might say that, can you talk about that? I'm sure somebody here is maybe going to tell me that, can you also talk about signatures instead of talking about that writing in the bills, but also talk a little bit more about the signatures, because, right here at the bottom right here, I can include right here as example right here of the signature, and people might say that, yeah, you talk about your signature, right? Your signature is not just the spelling of your name. It's also, it's also proof of your presence, right? So, like, let's just say that, anything that you were working on from earlier, that, yeah, I can go ahead and use this right here as an example of a signature, right? And so this right here is more likely what it's going to look like when it's stamped. But let's just say that if you were to actually do like what you call e-sign a document, right? If you were to actually e-sign a document, what exactly is it that you're doing? That means that, yeah, that's exactly more like, that would probably be that would exactly be it. That's what a signature would more likely look like if that was any source of certificate, any source of a statement, or any source of notary or something like that. Nowadays with digital technology, that the signature would usually be right here, like on the very bottom, on the bottom right here. And so yeah, any documents, there's usually a spot on that application where it's going to ask you to sign and date something. And so yeah, like everybody else may say that your autograph is basically gives your autograph is your voice, your voice for your choice, right? So like everybody say that you just gotta know that how it's spelt and knowing about it. Yeah, if it's generated into a computer, for sure, generated into a computer, that as long as it's set correctly, that that's supposed to be your voice right there. And so we're talking about the documents, right? So, but almost every bill that you do pay nowadays, that you might think is toward it, your signature right here. So like everybody might think that to where that, okay, yeah, your disability, but your signature, right? Your signature right here. Don't you think that it would make more sense, like everybody else would say, is to where, okay, yeah, go ahead and copy that and maybe place that right up here to where that, yeah, if we're talking about multiple documents right here, go ahead and drag and drop that right up here. So if I were to place that right here, yeah, if I were to place it, like, yeah, go and put it right here so we can all read it right here. So this right here, yeah, so if I were to put my signature right here between these sentences right here, and you're thinking as to, well, really, what's the reason why you would do that? And anybody who's trying to read what this says right here, but why do you think that you would want to place a signature right here in 102? That, yeah, well, really, the reason why you would do that, number one, if you're just testing it out, right? But still, that that gives the system power to. I'm like, yeah, you're pretty much giving the system power. The way we think about that is to where that if you actually use this, use your electronic signature right here, that's another way of how to use the system properly, right? A lot of companies out there are going to say is to where it's not really about a recent payment that was received or not, but your signature is missing off of that paperwork. So if it's tax documents or if it's anything else real important, whenever it comes to taking care of paperwork, that's your autograph right there. That's your signature right there. And so that's why it seems like that that every time you think about your disability, though, the first thing that you think about is that our company is still going to accept you, even though if you do claim to have a disability. But you have right here, I talk about your signature, right? And somebody might say that, really, if your signature is missing off that document, you should already know it's not going to work. And so, like everybody else might say that, any paperwork that you're going to be looking at for sure, they say that, yeah, whenever, before a document, before a package is delivered, and for sure, before any source of job, is so yeah, so that's something to think about, right? So if you were to actually do that right there, and people might say that, yeah, the reason why you're doing it is so that way, yeah, you can get a better understanding of that, right? Anybody who don't really understand what you're talking about, what I'm talking about, but I'm talking about is that
that anything that you're going to be, any Word documents or anything that you're going to be talking about, that for sure that people are going to say is to where it's good to go ahead and stamp your name, your signature on there, just because that was. It's another way of saying this to where that's something that you said from earlier, and it's a document that was in the system, that was recorded in the system from earlier. So every time you think about a disability, right, and you're 102, that your disability this and your disability that, but you're 102, that every time you think about your disability, though, you think about your name. Your name is supposed to represent your voice, and whenever you think about your voice, though, and you're 102, there are times if you do forget to sign a document for any reason at all, if you had a lot going on, that they'll tell you that those 2 pages, these first 2 pages right here, they're not going to work because your signature is not present. It needs to be signed before that task can be done. And so the way we think about right here is that talk about for problems right here, and a lot of documents nowadays that you include the front, page 1 and page 2 right here, and let's just say that that's going to include maybe an image or maybe an infographic or something like that that's going to show the work that you were working on. But it's like talk about first signature, and so you may start out the project by saying this to her, I want something to be done real quick and easy, real easy to understand. Talk about for citizenship right here. So the reason why I include that right there is talk about your signature, right? But then also about your disability. So in case of anybody that may say that your disability though, but it's like, is that really supposed to limit your ability to where, be able to meet the requirements? But everybody else might say that no, it's another way of saying this to where that your way of learning and thinking is different than compared to everybody else, right? But like, let's just say that maybe if you can teach, you can go and teach the senior citizens, even the veterans and the other citizens, about the things that you do. That can be really useful and helpful, to them. And so that's why it seems like every time we do think about that, and you're 102, if you're going to be having these conversations with your older brother and your older sister at 102, you put that to the test right there. They're going to say that, hey, why, okay, well, why did you put your name right there at the bottom? Is that usually what you do see? People might say that, in permanent ink, too. People might say that, especially whenever it comes to yours, mine, and ours, if you're going to be sharing your toys with somebody, for sure, if you're going to be sharing something with somebody, with good partnership, for sure, you say that, I put my name in permanent ink too, by the way. I put my name in permanent ink right there just because that, I was actually sharing it with somebody. It was one of my best friends. It was one of my classmates. I was actually, we were sharing our supply. We were sharing that with, at one time. We were sharing it at one time, and so that's why we thought that, we asked that question to where that, what does our name look like written in permanent ink? And so it's like, you would go ahead and write your name right there, like a computer generated type design right there in 102, that you would be talking about that. In 102, that you would go ahead and write your name in permanent ink, like on a maybe on a pair of tennis shoes or something like that, or on a paper. And you 102, that you go ahead and write your name down right there for any reason at all. And 102, that I wrote my name on there in that sort of way, just because, just to test it out, or just to see what it looked like. But everybody else might say is toward it really, what is that really supposed to teach anybody whenever you do that? But everybody else might say is toward it, well, if you just want to do something real creative, for sure. But people might say that anything that you do on here, for sure, somebody's going to maybe ask to see, and they're going to ask you that if they can have a copy of that sometime, so that way they can have a better understanding of what you put together right there, right? And so it's like, yeah, you put your name right there, and people want to know too that, yeah, they're going to go ahead and ask the questions. Well, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be asking you so many questions, but what's this all about? And so yeah, so if you were to put, so if I were to put the date on here, like let's just say that if I were to put on here, August, August the 20th. So if I were to put, August 20th of 2022 right here. So let's just say if I were to put that right there on the top right there, really, what does that really tell us? What does that really tell anybody whenever you do that? Okay, yeah, August 20th. What about August 20th? I'm like, well, really, what about August 20th? Well, that's, so yeah, what about August 20th that you're trying to tell us? And, people might say is to her, yeah, August 20th, that's about 60 days from now or something like that. Yeah, you put on there August 20th. Yeah, due to my disability, yeah, the things that you talked about from earlier. So it's like, yeah. So every time you think about that, is that really about is toward it? Yeah, just be, to have a plan set, be prepared, but like everybody else might say is toward it, every time you think about that, you always want to know too, is that, you're really, whenever you do start writing about your goals and achievements, you really want to go ahead and you really want to go ahead and show progress with what you're doing, right? So it's like every time, if you're going to be writing that, you really, achievements, and, I'm just going to go ahead and use progress, by the way. Go ahead and use progress and go ahead and put that in big, but, still, every time you think about that and you're warned toward it, your progress that is made, and, I know it. You want to go ahead and maybe, might put that, change that, character. Yeah, change that, the hot bullet, but, so that way we can see it right there, but, still. So every time you think about, every time you do think about citizenship, are you going to be thinking about, progress that was made? So it's like, if you were to actually write it down for sure, if you would actually write it down, and at 102 is that, you go ahead and write that down. Do you think that there's going to be a lot of good progress that's going to be made if you do write it down, look over it, and to actually talk to somebody just to see what exactly what you've been working with and what exactly that you've been testing? And people might say that, does that usually work whenever you actually write things down, whenever you're able to actually talk about things, and it's all provided onto a document like this right here, and people might say is toward, the front, the front, left and right, you look at it from left to right like that right there, and maybe everybody, people would maybe have a little bit better understanding of what you were talking about from earlier, maybe if they're able to look at that toward it, that same information based on the work that you were doing. It's on the pages 3 and 4 right here, and 5 and 6, the work that you were doing. And so I know, like everybody else might say, that whenever it comes to disability citizenship right here, that, whenever you do write your name down right here, and then talk about for August 20th of 2022 right here for progress that was made, for every given every given voice is a given choice. And so every time you think about that, and you're warned toward it, in case of anybody that may want to know too, that what exactly does it mean whenever you do talk about a claim? And want to know that, I'm like, claims are basically another way of saying is toward that, that it was owed to you from a long time ago. And so the way I think about too, that every time you think about that, and you want to know too that, why can't you just say that on the advertisement, right? Why can't you just say that on the paperwork? It's like, any letter that you do receive in the mail, that why don't insurance companies, a lot of times, especially like everybody else say, that especially with the systems, that the way that they're operating now, that if you do get a letter about your taxes or anything else, that you're going to get a letter explaining about something like that. And people might say is toward it, yeah, if you really want something to better understand for sure, yeah, for sure, you would include something like an infographic, like something like this right here, to where that there's a picture right there, and then you have something like this, where it's like yeah, like a, yeah, it don't really have, like, yeah, like everybody say graphic designers would probably do something like this, but, something toward it, it's a note, it's a letter from the office explaining about, that they got all the information that they need to see, and that, that there's been updates that took place based on your account or based on your case and all that, and that is why every time you think about that in year 102, that, yeah, that, all this hard work that you put into something, right? So it's like, yeah, so in case if anybody asks me, that can you explain a little bit what this is right here? But, yeah, it's, I pasted that in right there, like, yeah, compare it, yeah, compare it to, it's a different, character right there. But, yeah, writing in cursive, yeah. In case of anybody that may want to know too, that, what does your writing look like if you were to actually write in cursive? So like, yeah, your disability means, and I can include right here, yeah, talk about for in cursive. So I can, like, yeah, it's also, yeah, also a claim, which, a claim that was owed, yeah, it was owed to you, it was a claim that was owed to you from a long time ago, and go ahead and put on here, yeah, and to change that, like, yeah, to like an in cursive, you'll go ahead and, I know, everybody else might say that, okay, in cursive. I'm like, well, I'm like, yeah, something kind of like that right there. If you go ahead and write in cursive, something kind of like that. Or not, yeah, in cursive. That's not really in cursive. I'll go ahead and see if I can find another example here. Yeah. In cursive writing. Oh, I know it. Something kind of like that right there. Yeah. Kind of like that. Yeah, whenever it comes to, so yeah, so if you're going to be writing in cursive for any reason at all, I'm sure everybody here might even say that, if you want to go ahead and write in cursive, for sure, that there is a type of character that you would use for that, but, really, anything creative that you want to write about, for sure, like everybody else might say, that, would you write in cursive if you were trying to write anything private, like anything personal or private, anything that you didn't want everybody really to read and understand, for sure, you would go ahead and include like a little memo or something like that. And for anything else, like anybody say that, you would go ahead and write in cursive for that reason. And so it's like, yeah, anything that you're going to be writing about, for sure, anything that you're going to be writing about, that you probably say that the reason why you put that there was because that you don't want anybody to read it right away. And so it's like, yeah, you go and start writing, and maybe people might say that, hey, I don't know what that says. Can you read it to me? And so it's like, yeah. So every time you think about that, you're 102. That, well, really, the reason why I'm like, yeah, the reason why I was writing that was because I don't really like. I'm like, yeah, I don't want anybody. I'm like, yeah, I don't really want everybody looking at that right away. And so it's like, yeah. So whenever you writing, I'm trying to say writing here. Yeah, everybody say that, yeah, you're trying to say writing right there, but, if you don't really want everybody looking at what you're writing right away, for sure, that, yeah, tools, to use for that, but like everybody say that, whenever you do start writing about something, that, you really, that, you, first of all, it's like, it's all about trying to make it a little bit more sense, to where that you're trying to make it a little bit more clear and understanding for your readers to be able to pick up and follow up about what you were talking about from earlier, right? So every time you think about that, and you're always thinking as toward, yeah, it all don't make sense right, it don't make sense right now, but later on, later on, in case if somebody were to ask you the questions for sure, what does this mean, or I don't know what that says right there, and so that's typical about any source of journalism, any source of writing skills, right? That really, what is so special about that? Well, really, that whenever you do start writing for sure, what you really are trying to do is that you're trying to improve your own writing skills, right? You're trying to write something, and maybe if you're trying to say something, right? But if somebody were to say that, yeah, they looked at this and they were thinking that, are you thinking what I'm thinking? And more likely that they're going to look at that, and then the first thing that you said earlier was that, yeah, due to your disability, but still, people might say that, while you're writing, maybe you don't want everybody looking over your messages, anything that you're tweeting about, anything that you're going to be writing about. Maybe you don't want everybody looking at what you're talking about, and maybe that's why you're going to go ahead and use a different writing format. You're going to go ahead and say something and write a certain way to where that you don't really want everybody looking at it right now. You just really, you're writing, but then you go ahead and read. You can go and read it to somebody, but you tell them that I don't want anybody reading it right now. It's kind of personal, and so that's like with me though, that any personal messages that you do get or you do see, and 102 that whenever you do think about writing, that what you really are doing is that you are also thinking, you actually are thinking to yourself about what you really want to use. You're brainstorming ideas just to be able to write them down onto a document before they're shared, right? So every time you think about a disability, though, that you're trying to write down some ideas, right? And so in case somebody may say is toward, okay, yeah, that anything that you're going to be working on for sure, if it's in your own spare time, that somebody's going to be asking the question, and so that's why it seems like that every time you think about that and you have your conversations with your older brother and your older sister, like everybody say, yeah, if you learn to share, for sure, whenever you do learn to share, you're going to be sharing your belongings with a cousin or with an older brother and an older sister. But people might say that, yeah, don't you think that, like everybody say that, when we do speak about insurance, by the way, why isn't there any sort of plan or a special package or anything like that that talks about cousins? People might say is toward, yeah, based on your experience, why don't you have anything titled, cousins, for cousins, the cousins, cousins specials or something like that. Your cousins specials. So whenever you do think about that, and you're thinking that, cousins specials, and every time you think about that, you're thinking as to, well, really, they don't really call it, even on your insurance, they may not even call it cousin specials, but what you usually see are like, U.S. citizen specials or something like that, or for the veterans or something like that. Your cousins specials, and so that's something that you usually don't see right there, and so it's like, yeah, cousins specials, but then for the veterans, and for the senior citizens, and also for the veterans, and so it's like, yeah, so every time I'm like, yeah, I can put veterans right up here, so that way we can see, but for the veterans, and for the veterans, and for the veterans, and for the seniors, senior citizens. Oh yeah, I know. If you want to change that character, I'm like, yeah. Well. Anyway, veterans, benefits, and stuff like that. Okay. I don't know if everybody really gets the idea or not, or for senior citizens. Yeah, senior benefits, senior citizens. Veterans, for the veterans, and then the senior citizens. Senior citizens, and no, it's senior citizens, right there. Yeah, so every time you think about that, and you're thinking is that whenever you first started working on this, a number of things were kind of going through your mind, such as can we also use daycare expenses? Can we also use senior benefits and all? But still, but talking about disability right here. So yeah, so it's like a lot of things to talk about whenever it comes understanding about things, right? But your cousins, specials, and all that. But still, talk about for senior, for special citizenship. And so it's like, talk about for problems, right? And so it's like each time you think about that, whenever you do get a bill, for sure, but for 400 minutes right here, but what all can you get done in 400 minutes? But you see right here, talk about for having a meeting about things like that. 102, really, what all has been getting done, but you have meetings about things, and 102 that, you got problems that come up, and but still, that everybody else might say that, you go ahead and look at a document like that right there. It talks about the front and back, the left and right page. You're looking at the pages from left to right there, and 102 that, okay, I remember having a meeting, talking about that, but really, what has all really been getting done, since then? Well, what I can really tell from here is that you talked about your disability, and maybe you talked about the things. I'm like, the conversations and all that, but really that whenever it comes to setting goals and achievements, though, that you talk about gifts, they say you talk about special gifts and all that, but you have right here for questions right here. But anyway, but talk about for special citizenships right here, and 102 that whenever you first start working on something, that you would, if anything, for sure, you would want to know, the things that you do know, and based on the feedback, right? The things that you can, for real quickly right here. And anyway, hopefully that's some good information right there, and knowing about, you're able to seek some information about that stuff, but still, everybody might think is toward it, each time you do talk about a disability, though, that you might think is toward it, that talks about problems, by the way, a lot of people, they don't want to deal with those problems, and knowing about, not everybody wants to deal with those problems, and so that's why it seems like this toward it, you want to think about the things that the company still needs too, what the needs are, what people still need from you, even though say, they treat you with very special, the citizenship, and if you're going to be a U.S. citizen for sure, they say that, they still need you to do something, or they still need you for this, and they still need you, for this service and all that, and so that's why it seems like, what the needs are, they still need you, and I conclude right there on the bottom, tell everybody too, what the needs are, they still need you to do something, and what the needs are, what those needs are, and what the needs are. I could put on, Oh, I'm trying to write down, but I'm also looking at how much space that I have. What are the needs? What are the needs? And what are the needs? And they'll probably tell you that, we can think of, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that we still need. There's a lot of things about what you do that we still need, and what the needs are. People might say, well, I'm going to change that. You need to be able to, people, yeah, everybody needs to be able to read it too. You need to be able to read it. Yeah, go and change it that. But still. Okay. Yeah, what are the needs? What the needs are. So every time you think about what the needs are, for sure, a lot of offices, a lot of people still need it, and they still need. We still need this. We're counting on that, for it to work, and so yeah, stuff like that. But anyway, I hope there's some good advice right there, and knowing about understanding about gifts, and then knowing about for disability, right? But yeah, anyway, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.